Hello everyone and welcome. In this video I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on Y: The Last Man Season 1 Episode 1, 2 and 3 as they have all released simultaneously. This video will contain spoilers for all of these episodes, so please do keep that in mind. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin. Y: The Last Man is a dystopian TV show based upon the comics of the same name. I'm pretty sure this show was announced back in 2015 and here we are 6 years later and it's only just finally come to our TV screens. For a bit of context, I have read the first 5 volumes of the Y: The Last Man comics, and that encompasses issues 1 to issues 31, which is half of the comic run. I read them a couple of years ago. I liked what I read, but for some reason I kind of just forgot about it and never finished the series. But I will finish the comics now that the show is back on, and in preparation for the TV show I did go back and reread the 5 volumes that I do own before watching the first episode. Even though I haven't read the comics from start to finish, I was still really excited for this show. I like the character of Yorick in the comics. I like the idea of all the men with a Y chromosome just suddenly dropping dead and then the rest of the world having to deal with that. And yeah, overall I was excited for the show. I got up early Monday morning to watch it. I really wanted to like it, but here comes the bad news. I didn't. I found these 3 episodes to be tedious, I found them to be dull, and it just isn't a good start to the show in my opinion. So let's discuss these episodes in more detail, and we will begin with episode 1. The first episode of Y: The Last Man is the best of the bunch. It's okay in my opinion. I don't think it's going to blow anyone away like Days Gone By did when that was aired 10 or 11 years ago, but it's alright, it's okay. The episode does drag at times and there were some scenes which I felt were way too slow, but because I knew what was going to come, because I knew all the men were going to die, I was always on edge. I was always nervy, I was always kind of waiting, thinking when is it going to happen, so it kept my interest. For example, there's a scene of this woman whose name I forget, but she's at home with her 3 young boys and her husband, and I was watching it thinking, oh my god, you better enjoy your time with these because they're going to die soon. As the episode progresses, we see more and more male animals die, we see deer dead on the road, we see male rats die, and it keeps the sense of tension building throughout, and yeah, okay, it is quite horror cliche, you know, animals dying, but I didn't mind it. And then the event does happen and all the men start dying, and yeah, it's brutal. The moment which got me in particular is when we see this young woman cradling her dead son's lifeless body, her young son, covered in blood and he's dead, and she's there going, please help me, and yeah, that was rough because it's always hard when kids die. It's always harder watching them die on TV shows and whatever, and yeah, that was rough, man. However, I do wish that the show spent more time on this moment, and I wish we saw it happening in more places because we only see it happen in this small city block. Okay, I think we do jump to a few different places. I think we do go to Nora, I think her name is, Nora's house, and she goes upstairs and sees her son and her husband dead in bed. But I remember in the comics that we jump to loads of different places. We see the men dead at the Tokyo Stock Exchange. We see all the men dead at NASA HQ. We see some journalists die in Israel, I believe. And there's just a much bigger sense of scale in the comics. And I wanted to see that on the TV show. Show me a scene in, I don't know, Brazil where a priest is giving a sermon to his flock and then he dies and then all the men in his church start dying. Show me a scene in England in which 2 teams are playing football and then they just drop dead and then all the men in the stadium start dropping dead and falling down the stairs in the stadium. Show me a scene at the North Pole in Santa's workshop where Santa dies. Alright, maybe forget that last one, but you get what I mean. This is the huge event which takes place in this show's universe. Make it huge. Give me a huge sense of scale. Don't just confine it to one little city block. I think part of the reason why it seems so small in the TV show is that it does seem that this show has quite a small budget, and that becomes more apparent in episode 2 and 3, and I'll talk about that a bit later. Anyway, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself now, so let's take a step back for a moment. The first episode does introduce us to a number of main characters, the first being Yorick, who goes on to become the titular last man. Yorick is okay, I guess, but it just feels like there's something missing at the moment. I don't want to come off as being, you know, a comic snob. I mean, I haven't even finished the comics, but I just find him to be way more charismatic in the comics, way more funny, and I don't know, he just hasn't really grabbed me yet in the TV show. He needs to do more. He's okay, but you know, he's not like he is in the comics. He's far better in the comics in my opinion. We also meet Yorick's sister Hero, and we have a scene of these two where Yorick meets her after her AA class, and I like this because I don't remember them interacting in the comics before the men die, so it looks like the TV show is going to take a bit more time and expand upon certain relationships which maybe weren't sort of given enough time in the comics, and I like that. One of the biggest changes the TV show has made from the comics is that Beth, who is Yorik's girlfriend, is in America. In the comics, she's in Australia, she's on holiday, and Yorik, constantly says in the comics that he wants to leave the US, he wants to find her, but he's trying to save the world, and he has to deal with this conflict. Does he stay in America, or does he go off and try and find his girlfriend? And I think in the comics it creates an interesting dynamic because Yorik often comes into contact with other women who want to have sex with him. It creates this dilemma where you have to ask yourself, is it okay for Yorik to cheat on his girlfriend because she's so far away and realistically he has no way of getting to her and may never see her again? Or should he stay faithful to a woman even though he may never see her again and even though she's on the other side of the world? And I don't know how they're going to recreate this in a TV show because I think it's a lot easier to stay faithful to someone when they're in the same country as you, when they're in the same town. I mean, we don't know where Beth is after all the men die, but she was in his apartment not long ago. She was in the same city as Yorik was, so she's out there somewhere. And I think Yorik has less of an excuse now for cheating on her because she's in the same country. Not that you should excuse cheating, but it's a weird point. But I think because in the comics she's so far away and Yorik never knows if he's going to see her again, it kind of creates this dilemma where Yorik is more willing to give in to his temptations. Whereas on the TV show, I don't really know how he's going to do that because she seems to be quite close to him in proximity. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not really a fan of this change at the moment in time, but we'll see how it pans out. We also get some scenes of Agent 355 doing some sneaky secret agent shit. She's with this guy making a bomb for him in some kind of rundown shanty house, and then she jumps out the window, walks off and blows the bomb up with the dude inside because obviously her mission was to eliminate him, I guess. And that was cool and one of the best moments of the episode in my opinion. We also see Ampersand, who is Yorik's monkey. How can you not love this guy? I was kind of worried that the show might be getting rid of Ampersand and wouldn't really feature him because of, budget issues and the visual effects, but he's quite prominent in these first 3 episodes, which is encouraging. And we also meet Yorik's mum, who, like in the comics, is a congresswoman, and to be honest, I found pretty much every scene she was in to be really tedious. I mean, just scenes of her talking to other politicians, yeah, they weren't fun to watch. They're the weakest part of the episodes for me. But anyway, that's episode 1. Okay, I guess. Let's move on to episode 2. Oh my, is this episode boring. So Yorik's mum becomes the president and she tasks Agent 355 with finding Hero. She goes to Hero's flat but she's not there, and Yorik has also done the same thing, so she finds Yorik and then the episode ends, and that's about it really. An issue I have with this episode and episode 3 is that there just isn't enough Yorik. He's supposed to be the main character, but instead Y: The Last Man likes to show me scenes of Yorik's mum talking to people in offices, and it's not very interesting. Come on Hulu, this is episode 2 of your brand new show. Give me something exciting. If I wanted to hear boring conversations take place in an office, I'd just go back to my office where I work instead of choosing to work from home, so I don't have to listen to any of that boring shit. Anyway, the best part of this episode is when Yorik is held up by some women who realise that they could potentially trade him because he's valuable, and they eventually release him because he starts crying and they realise how pathetic he is. And this is good. This is the kind of stuff I want to see from Y: The Last Man. Yorik on the road, getting into trouble. Not people in offices talking rubbish. We do get a scene of Hero who is hanging around with some transgender men. Interesting that they've survived, and obviously the virus or whatever it is only attacks men with a Y chromosome. I like that this guy made a point of saying that things are now worse for him than they were before, because it's not really something I've given much thought to, but when you think about it, it does make sense. I mean, imagine a woman finds this guy. I think that most women would be disappointed because he can't have children, right? I don't think that trans men can have kids. Correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that they can't produce sperm. So this guy is probably going to come into contact with women. They'll be excited because, yay, we can reproduce, we can have kids. But then they realise, oh, he's a trans man, he can't have kids, and he's probably going to get treated like shit and probably going to be hated even more than he was before all the other men started dying. So that's an interesting point. Like I said, it wasn't something that I thought about previously, so yeah, I like that. That was interesting. I mentioned a moment ago that the show feels like it's done on a small budget, and it's even more apparent in this episode because in the comics, Yorik's mum is in the White House, but in this episode, she's in some random building, and the White House is stormed by protesters, I believe, and she just says, oh, don't worry, let them take the White House, it's just a building. And no president would ever say that. Even a stand-in president knows the importance of the White House. They wouldn't just go, it's a building, let them take it. But they did that because they obviously don't have the budget to film on a White House set, which is, pretty disappointing. So yeah, that's about it from episode 2. Not very good. Let's move on to episode 3. So in episode 3, Yorick is dropped off at the Not White House by Agent 355. The helicopter pilots who helped rescue Yorick with Agent 355 are told to keep their mouths shut. And I found this quite interesting because one of them mentions a potential conspiracy theory. She says that it's a bit funny that the only guy who survived is the president's son. And it insinuates that there might be something else, something sinister at play here. And I do like that angle. She mentions that if word gets out to the public that the only remaining man on the planet is the president's son, then people are going to be pissed and they're going to be writing even more than they actually are. And again, I like that angle. I like that. But like the event in episode 1 when that took place, I want to see more of this. I don't want to just see a tiny scene of someone writing, or I don't want to see people talking about it. I want to actually see it. Show me, I don't know, a woman in the street with a speakerphone addressing the crowd saying, it's a conspiracy, the president had something to do with this. Alright, I know she doesn't know Yorick was alive, but they already mentioned that at that point that there are already conspiracy theories running rampant and that people already believe the president had something to do with all the men dying. So yeah, show me a scene of that. Show me a scene of fanatics. Show me a scene of your people getting riled up. Don't just give me a little clip of some gates being thrown. Again, it just shows the budget, in my opinion. It just makes the whole thing feel cheap. Anyway, I'm pretty sure that the episode ends with the 2 helicopter pilots who 355 told to keep quiet dying at the end of the episode, because she tells them to go in a separate helicopter and she takes Yorick in her own helicopter, and I think she did that because she basically put something in there to kill them, to keep them quiet about Yorick. At least that's something interesting that happens. I like that. 355 seems to be an interesting character. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more of her. We get a scene in Israel of a lady called Regina who wakes up in a field hospital. She's been in some kind of accident. She isn't aware that all the men have died, and the registered nurse tells her that. And she then says, oh, so that means I'm the president of the United States. So I'm guessing that she must be the president's wife, the one who died. This causes a chain reaction when the women who support her in the US then band together and they protest against Yorick's mum. I should really stop calling her Yorick's mum. Let me just have a look what her name is. Jennifer Brown. Okay, so Jennifer Brown, the president, they go up to her and say, oh, you're not the president president's alive in Israel. Jennifer kind of calms the situation down. They go away, and then not a lot really happens. All that happens later on is the leader talks to Jennifer, the leader who got this group of women together, and she apologizes, and that's about it. And again, this is another example of why I feel that the show is working with a limited budget, because in the comics, these women band together and actually attack the White House, because like I said, Jennifer's at the White House in the comics. They attack the White House, there's a shootout because they don't believe Jennifer should be president. I think some women end up dying. Yorick is put in some kind of high security area downstairs and he's locked behind this door, and then he gets a chance to show off his escape artist skills by undoing the lock, and we learn a bit more about him, learn a bit more about his skills, and it's just a cool set piece in the comics. But in a TV show, we don't get to see it. We don't get to see it. Instead of, attacking with guns, these women just walk up and say to the president, you're not the president. And then she says, oh, I am. And then they walk off. Major letdown, in my opinion. I mean, maybe the writers are setting up some conflict between these two groups to take place in the future, but I don't know. The characters have moved on now. The story's moved on. By the end of the episode, Yorick is on the road and begins to go on the road, which takes place in the comics after the fight at the White House. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens. So, as I just said, the episode ends with Yorick in a helicopter, and he's now going to search for Dr. Allison Mann, who in the comics is some doctor who is an expert on cloning, and she might know what caused all the men to die, might be able to help. So Yorick now has to go find her. And the comics only really started getting going once Yorick was on the road. So I'm hoping now that with him on the road, the show will improve, because it needs to, because these first 3 episodes weren't great in my opinion. I really think you could have condensed these all down into one big episode. I don't think you needed 3 episodes, because they do just feel very long and dragged out. These episodes just didn't do enough for me. I'm going to keep watching because I like the comics and I want to see where it goes, but I think a lot of casual viewers might watch these first 3 episodes and already think, nah, I'm not going to watch this show. I'm not giving it a chance. It's not good enough. I mean, my girlfriend was in the room with me and she walked out halfway through episode 3 because she was bored and she was like, I don't want to watch this anymore. And I think a lot of people might feel the same way. I just don't think it does enough to grab people. I don't think it does enough at all. I mean, compare it to the first 3 episodes of The Walking Dead, which went all out with its budget, and were fantastic. This just pales in comparison. So, yeah, really disappointing in my opinion. I read an article online in which one of the writers of the show said they've got a 5-season arc planned for Y: The Last Man, and if this is how the show goes, you're not going to get to season 5. It's going to get cancelled after next season. You need to do better than this. I really just hope things get better next week, because I ended up paying $25 to sign up to Hulu to watch this, and I want a refund now. And you know how bloody annoying it was for me to sign up to watch this early? I had to use a VPN to sign up to Hulu, but Hulu wouldn't let me sign up because my card is registered in the UK. I then tried to go onto Walmart and Target and buy an electronic Hulu voucher, but they rejected my card because once again it's from the UK. Eventually I did manage to buy a Hulu voucher on Amazon US, I believe, and then had to put that in and signed up for Hulu, but my god, it was a right pain in the arse. And yeah, like I said, at this moment in time, I want a refund for my money. So hopefully this show gets better, or hopefully some of you out there can recommend me some good shows on Hulu in case Y: The Last Man just turns out not to be very good, because I've got it for 2 months now and I paid for it. So, but anyway, enough rambling. Let me know your thoughts below. Have you watched this show? Did you enjoy it? Did you disagree with me? Do you agree with me that these episodes aren't very good? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below, and I shall see you all very soon. Take care. Goodbye.